Unfortunately, because of the COVID situation and everything really truly went digital, the amount of true like work that I have to do to convince someone that this is important has dropped way off, right? Past 5 years. And for a lot of obvious reasons. And I think that friction has dropped a lot. A lot of people I think out there probably know they need to do this, but they don't know where to start and they don't really understand what is available to them. And so that's really why my business exists. I love to see business owners start to understand and realize the potential and then scale up.
Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's Tax Rep Network podcast. I'm Eric Green. I am joined actually by one of the Tax Rep team members, Dave DeBlasio. So I'll give you the official bio. Dave actually is our marketing agency, does all of our digital marketing, a lot of the design work. So Dave DeBlasio is the founder of DeBlasio New Media Marketing, a Boston-based digital marketing agency. He launched in 2005 with more than 2 decades of experience in SEO, targeted paid advertising, website development, and AI search optimization. Dave and his team help businesses generate measurable growth through data-backed strategy and creative execution. He's known for his ability to translate complex digital trends, including retargeting, AI search, and data analytics, into clear, actionable marketing plans. I can attest to that, and that drive leads, revenue, and long-term brand authority. And the way I met Dave, so Dave, thanks for doing this, by the way,
Yeah,
first of
thank
all.
you. Thank you very much.
The way we met, Kevin, who is, my marketing guy for Tax Rep, knows Dave. And at one point when Kevin joined, we got to get more sales. And Kevin looked at our stuff, and I remember he said, "Oh, this isn't good. All right, we got to clean up social media. We got to come up with a strategy." And we did some social media stuff and whatever. And we ended up talking, Dave, about the idea of retargeting. And in fact, the way this came up for everyone listening, I actually was looking at one of those solo outdoor fire pit stoves.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things I looked at it and, oh, that looks really cool. Oh, look, my phone is buzzing. Oh, my wife is calling me. And, like everyone out of sight, out of mind. Well, and this is why, by the way, everyone listening, I think why this digital marketing is so powerful today, more than ever, anything in any time. We're all so distracted. The other thing, though, is it knows that I looked at it. You probably experienced this. You look at something on Amazon, now you see the ads for that everywhere. There, and I'll let Dave explain, but there are cookies they've enabled. They can track your, I think it's IP address, and they can send ads to you for that item that they know you've already looked at. And so the solo stove, I start seeing it everywhere. All right, I'm being retargeted. And one night they did, I remember it was a 12-hour flash sale, 56% off. So it went from $1,000 to 440. Buy, right? Done. And I texted three of my friends because we'd all been talking about it. We all have cigars outside. They all went and bought one. So
Yep.
solo with retargeting me got 4 sales. But that retargeting, we are finding now, it really works. And I think the reason it really works is again because I will send an email. People are like, oh, that's an interesting program. Oh, I got another email. Oh, I got a client. Now I got to go get my kid. And they just, we're all too busy. We're all got too much stuff going on. So first of all, can you explain first of all, how did you get into this? But
Yeah.
how does this work really? Because on the one hand, it's a little creepy that they're following me around with ads, but on the flip side, it works. You know how much stuff I bought because I keep seeing the same ad.
It definitely works. And I think everybody's experienced it. People will say, I think my phone's listening to me. You know, there's a chance that that's true, but the real thing that's happening is that on the back end of these platforms, whenever you're browsing the web, you leave a footprint, right? And that footprint is tracked especially by Google and by Meta through Facebook and Instagram, obviously TikTok now as well. But they're tracking you and they're tracking where you go across the web. And you have a profile. And then that profile drops into an audience that is accessible by advertisers, right? And so we can access people who, for example, may be researching whether or not they're going to put a pool in the spring, right? And if we know they're going to put a pool in the spring, then we can show them ads for, everything that goes along with that, the fencing and the pool supplies, right? Everything that goes with that. And so everything that you're doing across the web is leaving that footprint, dropping you into an audience. And then the very cool thing about it is that in the past, it was only the large companies that could access those audiences, right? And you usually had to do it through snail mail, right? You have to call somebody up. You got to say, I want these zip codes and I want this interest, and you got to take 5 weeks to put it together. And next thing you know, the idea that you had when you started isn't even relevant anymore.
Right.
But the cool thing about this is that that scale of what was only accessible by large corporations in the past is now accessible by everyone through Google's ad platform and through Facebook's ad platform. And
Well,
so
and by
we're
the
able
way,
to,
the
yeah,
expense, when I started my practice, I would invite accountants snail mail.
yep, of
300, and you buy the nice stock like resume type paper.
course,
So
yeah,
300 of that, so it was like two boxes, I think of 150 each. You had to buy the envelopes that matched.
right,
You had to print all this crap. Then you had to stamp it. You had to take it to the post office because you couldn't cram it all in the little tiny PO box or whatever in the
yep,
bottom of my building. So you're already in for $500-600 just mailing it, hoping 30 will show up.
right, exactly. And
Um,
not knowing, not really having a clear way of tracking how many saw it or interacted with it or how many, just threw it in the trash right when they got it, right?
right,
So, that's really where the differentiator is. And so my background. So I started my business in 2005, which to say that that's when I was in college now makes me sound old, and I am, I guess. But so I started my business in college in 2005, basically by going on to, Craigslist and finding people who need to build websites. And I found a few clients who, I built them their website and it was awesome and they loved it. But they said, well, how do I get people into this website? So, I did the research and I took classes in digital marketing and coding, and I actually can code a website from the ground up. And so having that sort of technical background and pairing it with a graphic design degree, which is what I ended up getting, kind of gives me this unique position where I have the technical skills, but also the design element aspect of it. And putting those two pieces together allowed me to build, a team around this, and over time have this excellent team where, I can take that skill and put together campaigns that not just reach the right people, but also reach the right people in the right way. Because over time, the way that you want to place your ad has changed. It went from static ads being really important to vertical video now, right?
right,
So now the way people are consuming things are these vertical video ads through Reels and Stories and YouTube Shorts, right?
right.
And they all need to have captions because nobody has their phone volume on when they're standing in line at the grocery store and they open their phone for the 5 minutes they're standing there because nobody can let go of their phone for 5 minutes. And they open up Instagram and Facebook and they're scrolling through and they see a video that has captions and they can see what's happening in that video without having to turn the sound on. So over time, we've sort of evolved to what the creative is that gets placed as well. And so, yeah, that's sort of a little background on how I got into this, basically by web development and then realizing how do we get the right people into the website and helping companies grow through that. Um, and for me, it's exciting because I get to take these businesses who don't have a giant budget, right? They don't have a massive budget to use,
Yep.
and they need to figure out how to make that go as far as they can. And one of the very cool things is that because a lot of companies are not fully aware of the abilities of the targeting, right? They don't really understand what's there for them to access. They know that they're getting ads in their feed as a business owner, but they don't really know how the people are doing that. And so we come in and bridge that gap. And it's very cool because the cost per thousand for a well-designed Facebook and Instagram ad is like $10, like $10 cost per thousand for a really well thought out campaign. And, where else can you put your image, in front of 10,000 people for $100? It's not very often. So
Well, and to finish the story, so I found that solo stove this way.
yeah,
Now, flip over about a week or two later, I'm meeting with Kevin. You and Jonathan had done work on our website, and I remember it was the whole campaign and Russian hacking and all that stuff. And I finally said, our emails don't get into all the inboxes. I'm like, maybe we should go hire the Russian hackers who do that stuff. Like where are those people? And I told Kevin, I'm like, I bought this solo stove. Why? Because the thing keeps following me around on my laptop, at home, on my phone.
right.
I'm like, how do we do that? He said, I don't know. Let's ask Dave.
Yep.
Which led us to Well, and the other thing, you had given me a statistic. I don't remember if it wasn't weekly, it must have been monthly. We were getting like 50,000 hits at one point, like on the tax rep website.
Yep.
I'm like, well, who are they? Why are
Right.
they not converting? Are they, what are they looking at?
Right.
And so that's why this has been just both eye-opening, but game-changing because we've seen, the upswing in tax rep. One, the chaos that the government, all the people in trouble help, but the fact that more and more people find us and more people are telling us they found us not on a webinar, not seeing us at one of the major conferences. They saw us on social media or an ad, which is the digital marketing.
Yeah. And the very
Um,
cool thing about it is that we can access what's called lookalike audiences. So there are a number of ways that we can retarget. Um, really, I'll give you five key ways. Really, and three are the main ones that we use. So the first way that you can retarget people is you can reach people who visited your website. So if someone visits your website, there's a little piece of code on your website. We then follow that person across the web because they may not convert, right? You're in an industry where you might have a conference 6 months from now, and the person might go to that conference page from the email, but then they might say, "Oh, I don't have time to sign up right now. I'll sign up later." Well, once they hit that conference page, then they're seeing your ads across the web until they sign up. And that's one way we can do it is if they hit your website. The other way is if they hit a competitor's website. So they go to a competitor's website who we've listed in our campaigns, and let's say that competitor has a large budget, a larger budget than you have, for example, and they go on there to that competitor's website through a paid ad because that competitor is spending, 30 grand a month in paid advertising.
yeah,
Then we can retarget that person who went to the competitor's website. The third way is, let's say they go to Google, they type a keyword in, you know, uh, tax rep conferences in the United States, and then they go to something related to that, but it's not you. We're following them across the web at that point as well. So those are the three like really key ways, and then the two others are if you have an email list of clients, we can upload that email list. This is a really cool part. And if someone logs into Facebook or Google with that email list, we can retarget them. And then the fifth and final way, which is kind of what made me first start thinking about this, is if somebody looks like someone in your audience. So there's something called lookalike audiences. And this is really cool, where if we already know who your primary audience is on Instagram and Facebook because they've liked your pages, they've interacted with your content, and we could say, okay, we want to target people who are very similar to that person, meaning they are also very interested in tax representation, their CPA, their attorney, whatever their profile is. We want to target someone who's similar to them, and we could do it based on a geographic area, based on an age range. And so those are really the five key ways that you can retarget.
and it works. So for the folks listening, it really works. And honestly, I could really, as much, because we're nationwide, right? Our tax rep members are everywhere. I always feel like we're more competitive. If you had a local HVAC business and you really wanted to just target within 50 miles, let's say, you could, I would imagine, for little money, really dominate the space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, one of the cool things we do with local service providers like an HVAC company is they'll give us their list of where their projects are, and we'll target a mile radius around that project while they're there. Because, not only are they going to see the truck and they're going to see the sign, but then they open up their phone and they're seeing that same company on the phone. Now it's like, okay, why I'm seeing these people everywhere. And so we could take that list of addresses where they are currently working and target radius locations around each of those addresses for very little money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's and for the folks listening, it's not a ton of money. I think we started off like it was like 500 bucks a month, right?
Right. Paid to Google,
In that
paid to the advertisers. Right.
right.
Right. You can start with a small budget.
And we were getting results. Now we've doubled and then doubled that, and we're already planning to double again, and we're still only scratching the surface in terms of the overall market. So this is one of those things I believe where you can start small and quickly ramp up because as you get more clients, put more money back into this. Now, at some point, you will cap out, right? I mean, there's only so many people in that area or that population that will want or see the ad.
Yep.
But That's the thing. Like honestly, I wish I discovered this 2 years earlier. It was really it's really been a game changer. And for the folks watching the video, that AI they built into Zoom, it saw me put my hands up, so then it made the
Give
hand
you a
whatever.
thumbs up. Give you a
Yeah.
thumbs up. It was good timing for the thumbs up.
Yep, I guess. Um, I tend to talk with my hands, and every now and then it'll put up like the raised hand, and
Yep.
it's really annoying. Like I'm on a board, and I'm the chair of our one of our boards, and during the Zoom, all of a sudden it'll look like hands are going up. People are like, no, no, I'm not putting my hand up. I just was whatever. Um, but so for a new business, an accountant, a tax professional, because I gotta tell you, a tax professional wants to blow up their business,
Yep.
whether it's bookkeeping, tax preparation, tax advisory, CFO services, IRS representation, of course. Again, because if you're really looking for local, it's not going to take much so that
Right.
nobody. So the way I got started marketing, beyond holding seminars, a friend of mine, Brian Burke, he's a realtor, is one of the most successful realtors in Connecticut. He was a state trooper, a state police officer. Went into real estate after he was involved in a shooting, justified, but that
Yep.
rattled him. He didn't want to do it anymore.
Yep.
Went into real estate, has just blown up. And he told me, he said, you need to own your piece of internet turf. So your blog, and you want to blog like him, real estate. So he'll blog about like in his town or the towns he focuses on, the pizza party for the football team, the success of the basketball team, the
Yep.
park, the improvements to the high school. Oh, and here are my listings.
Right.
Anybody who's in that area cannot help but see his blogs would just rank, and I started blogging. That was my big thing.
Yep.
This is that on steroids
Right.
because the blog didn't follow you. If
Right.
they searched, they'd find it, maybe they'd read it.
Yep.
Here, you can be in front of them on every device whenever they're on it. And so, to that extent, I would urge people you want to own your piece of internet turf, is the way Brian put it. And I think it's a good way to think about it.
Yep.
And so, if you're not a national company, and I think most people aren't,
Right.
it's it's not going to take much for you to just dominate your space. So there's really, to me, I almost want to call this podcast "No Excuse." There's really no excuse now. People say,
Right.
"Well, I don't like to market." You don't have to. That's what Dave's team they do. You
Right.
guys design our ads, which we look at and approve, and they just run. Um, it's I don't have a big budget for that. You don't need a big budget. It's not a
Right.
big budget thing.
Right.
So, Dave, when someone new comes to you, how do you start evaluating? Like, I know for us, you actually went and searched and said, here's the total market, here's the number of impressions that we could see, the number of clicks you should see, statistically the average, and how many actual people should be signing up. And we've actually found, I think you and I and Kevin have looked at this, it's pretty consistent.
Yep.
It's
Yeah. So
almost formulaic.
yeah, it is formulaic. So when someone comes in, we find out, what is the geographic area that you want to reach. That's very key in this entire campaign. And then who is your target customer? And then we go and we can build that profile in Meta ads and in Google Ads and see what is a total audience base there. What are we starting with? So let's say just for round numbers, we're starting with, 10,000 people in that audience, right? Out of those 10,000, we expect anywhere from 3 to 5% of those people to click into your ads. And of those 3 to 5% who click in, we expect anywhere from 1.5 to 3% to convert. Like those are the clear numbers that we follow. And then we just take that out and we expand it as you tell us what your budget is, right? So that's kind of like this is your base audience, and based on your budget, we can reach this many within that audience, and then we can formulaically look at what will your conversion rate be off of that traffic.
So to put that in, so 10,000, which is
Yep.
actually, it's not a tiny town, but it's not a city by
Right.
any stretch. So it's a decent sized town.
Yep.
You can expect 300 to 500 of those people to click in,
Click in.
to click in, and then half of them to go further. So you could be looking at 150 leads
You'll be looking at about 1.5 to 3% of the people who click in to convert is what
Got
we
it.
generally
Okay.
look at, which would be about 15 leads at 3%. And that's spending, basically you can reach 10,000 people for $100,
Yeah.
like on the ad side, right? So that's like at the lowest end example.
So, $100 plus, the small amount to design the ad.
Right.
You know,
Design the ad, set up the campaign, and manage
yeah.
it. Right.
Yeah. So if I were an accountant, I'm like, okay, so but let's say I'm going to spend $1,500. I
Right.
could probably pretty comfortably expect that I'm going to be getting 10 to 15 new clients
Right.
from that.
Exactly.
And you just
And
start
that's our
doing the
goal.
math.
That's our goal really is that, we work best, this really works best with companies where, it's anywhere from a 50 to $100 cost per lead, right? That's
Yep.
what we're generally aiming for. And usually we can get that lower. And that's sort of what we tell people. I'm always very conservative in our predictions, um, especially on the reach and the what we want your budget to be. We always go on the conservative side and then over deliver. One of the things that is important to keep in mind is that what's working really well is video ads, right? Or video ads. And so video content performs better right now than a static ad. So it's important to understand that creative aspect, and your cost will drop when you use video ads versus a static ad, just because they're basically rewarding people for giving audiences what they want to see versus giving them something that they may not want to see. And you had talked about this where you said, you don't have to wait for someone to find you, and it really is. It's a form of interruption marketing, right? Similar to radio or TV, but the budgets don't have to be as large as a radio or a TV budget, of course. And you're basically owning your own broadcasting, is how to look at it, right? Like instead of having to go through a radio or television studio to buy advertising, you're owning your own broadcasting channel on your social media platform and Google, and then paying those providers as a way to reach the right audience.
Yeah. And it's funny. I had this discussion with one of my tax rep members, and I said, look, so if it's going to cost you, I think I used 200, not 150, but
Yep.
$200 for each lead, and you got 10 leads a month. He said, all right, so it's going to cost me, let's call it $1,000 between setting up and then whatever, and I'm going to get 2,000. Do you think that's worth it? I said, do your clients just leave after 1 year? He
Right.
said, no. I said, what's the average life of your client? He said, well, probably 10 years at least. I said, so each one is 20,000. If you can get 10 of those, so let's say each return was 750. All
Yep.
right. And you got 10. That's 7,500 for that year. That you
Yep.
got that month that cost you the call 1,500. But it's not the 7,500. They stay for 10 years. It's 75,000. So
Right.
you spend
Right.
1,500, you got a future annuity of 75,000 for business, and you do that month after month after month. You want to have $1 million business.
Right.
This is where to put your money.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, so
It's it's very cool to see that because I'm in a business where up until really 2020, it took a lot more convincing for people, right? It really took a lot more to convince people that this was working and that they needed to do it. And once everybody was, truthfully, unfortunately, because of the COVID situation and everything really truly went digital, the amount of true like work that I have to do to convince someone that this is important has dropped way off, right? Over the past 5 years. And for a lot of obvious reasons. And I think that friction has dropped a lot. Um, and a lot of people I think out there probably know they need to do this, but they don't know where to start and they don't really understand what is available to them. And so that's really why my business exists. I love to see business owners start to understand and realize the potential and then scale up, and it does something not just for their bottom line and their revenue, but if they have employees within the business, there's a bit of morale there when you're putting quality content out. It changes the perception of your business both internally and externally. When you have quality, well thought out content that's consistently running across the web, you're seeing it, all of your audience is seeing it. And so there's another aspect there that is a little bit intangible beyond all the leads that I like to, kind of see that transition happen with clients over time and then grow with them as they get the leads and pump more money into these. And it's a that aspect of the business is really rewarding.
Yep, no, I know, I totally get it. So, for everyone who's listening, um, Dave, it is DeBlasioMarketing.com. For those people listening, I'm going to put it in the description. So, if you're listening to the audio, go into the description of the podcast. But it's DeBlasio is DeBlasio marketing.com. Is the website the best way to get a hold of you?
Yes, I have a form on that website, and you can send me a message through that form, or my cell is also there. And when you call me, you're going to get me, which my clients love. Even though I have a large team behind me, you're going to talk to me. You're not going to talk to, someone who you'll never get to know. And so, you'll be speaking directly with me. So my number's on that website.
Yeah, no, and kind of like those old hair club for men commercials. You know, um, I'm also a client. Dave does handle tax reps marketing. We're going to be doing some stuff for Green and Sklar's, the law firm, and so because it's just been incredibly powerful.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, no, we are over the moon in terms of the results, and I would highly recommend anyone who's listening who really does want to scale, aside from all the automations and the other things we talk about on the podcast, because you got to get your practice under control. But bringing in clients, this is probably dollar for dollar or cent for cent made. There's no better bargain than this. And I don't know that anything works as effectively as
Yep.
this.
Yeah. And I'll just close with one thing, which is that, the cost per click on display ad retargeting is about 10 to 25% low, what you would pay on a keyword click, right? So this is not keyword advertising. Um, and so that really makes your dollar go a lot further. So I'll just give you an example. I mean, Eric's had over 150,000 people see his content in February through Google alone at a 10-cent cost per click, driving, 16,000 people into the site to his pages that we're running ads for right now.
Yep.
And I don't know it's okay to share the small budget that costs. It's not a big budget. You can edit that out if you want, but it's 1,500 bucks,
Yeah.
to reach those people. $1,500 to reach 163,000 people and get 16,000 to click into the site. So,
Oh, I'm not joking. It is by far the most cost-effective and the most effective marketing, more than our emails, more than the webinars, more than anything else. And I know that because we track now where everybody comes from for tax rep. We want to know, how did you find us? What made you? Are you interested in building a practice? Do you have a particular case? We go through a whole questionnaire now that's all automated. More and more, it's social media, um, ad, a digital ad, or the podcast actually are becoming, I think, the top three.
yep,
Yep. No, it's unbelievable. So, Dave, listen, thank you for taking the time. Anyone
yep,
who's listening, DeBlasioMarketing.com, go check out Dave. If you're honestly, if you're concerned, reach out to me. Kevin, Nicole, we'll give you the real scoop, which I'm giving you now. So it's not going to change. This is the kind of thing you should implement. And again, you don't need to break the bank. You start small, and when the results start coming in, you just scale up. Now, I will, by the way, on that note, it did take a couple months, right, to
yep,
ramp up the ads and everything else. But I think, as I recall, we have to go back and look at the reports. I think within 2 weeks, we already doubled the hits on the site. And then as time went on, and again, the more it's kind of like a familiarity thing. The more ads they see, you had me start doing the short videos, and it really does convert. I mean, we see it.
right.
We have the actual results.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
So
more we have conversations with, and understand, your audience, your people, the better the creative, and over time, just things continue to grow. So, there's a certain level of working closely with our clients for at least the beginning. And then over time, it's a lot more hands off. So we really get to know your business. And I think that's what differentiates us, from a lot of other businesses out there where as we get to know your business, we are designing ads and creative that speak directly to your audience. And then we're also understanding exactly who to put the ads in front of. And the results just continue to compound.
yeah, absolutely. So Dave, thank you for taking the time. Everyone, thank you for listening. I'll put the link in the description, DeBlasioMarketing.com. This is the kind of thing, if you've not implemented this, this is the thing to do. And so with that, Dave, again, thanks for taking the time. Everyone, thank you for listening, and see you on next week's podcast.
Thanks, Eric.